Welcome back to Way Out There, my people. Um, just wanted to get on here again and just do some quick stuff. I'm sure the first 10, maybe 100 of these will just be potentially nonsense to most people. But if even one person finds some value in it, then I feel pretty good about it. So hopefully some people do gain some wisdom or just perspective from my seemingly mindless rants at times. There's a couple things that are just fresh off my mind now, having gone through my life coaching meeting with my own life coach. Um, I think it's important actually for life coaches to get life coaches. It's kind of like putting your money where your mouth is. I've never been one to really want a trainer that is like super overweight and stuff. It's just like you're not practicing what you preach. So, you might be a really good trainer, but if your lifestyle is making you unhealthy and you're going to try to, basically push me to be the best me I can be, and just it just doesn't make much sense to me. I think that integrity factor there, and I know life happens and you can really rationalize whatever, but for me, I just want people, the people that I work with and I'm taking advice from, or respecting, like typically they're practicing what they preach. It's not just saying, I've had this huge issue my whole life, or I'm guilty of it too, where a lot of people just say stuff. They say what they want to do, but no one actually does it. It was a huge issue that I had when I was playing volleyball at Penn State, where we would have these meetings and talk about all this stuff, but when it came down to actually executing, so few people executed in any way, shape, or form. So um anyway, as far as like when you start a business, a big part of that is like you want to find a niche that you can kind of work with, that's like your target audience. So something that was really important to me, something that is really important to me, and the people that I really think that I'd be able to help the most are going to be people that are transitioning from athletics into normal life. So whether you're a high school athlete and you think that you want to go play in college and for whatever reason it doesn't work out for you, like I'm your guy. If you are a high school athlete that doesn't even want to go to college, I'm your guy. If you're a college athlete and it's not working out for you and now you got to transition from being a college athlete to a normal college student, I'm your guy. If you are a college athlete who just finished playing in college and you put everything into your sport like I did and you didn't really want to do the school thing, I was an athlete student. I'll have no problem saying that. It bothers me greatly that there are a bunch of grown-ups that are coaching you or giving you advice, and they're telling you got to be a student athlete. You guys just can't help but brainwash us. You can't help it. You're so brainwashed already. My perspective on school is it's a giant brainwashing mechanism, and it's pretty evident. We'll get into that many times, but man, I just get heated and fiery about it because so many people are in these positions where they're supposed to help people that are growing up and learning and figuring out life for the first time, and they're not even aware how awful their advice is, and they don't listen to the kids, and I would tell my coaches, I'm not here for school. Like, I'm from Illinois. I wouldn't be at Penn State to go to school here if it weren't for volleyball. So I'm here for volleyball. I want you guys to make me the best volleyball player I can be. Obviously, I have to maintain eligibility and things like that, but that they didn't do that. They didn't do that for me. Am I a little bitter about it? Yeah. Am I harboring resentment? Much less than I used to. Whether you believe it or not, it probably doesn't sound like it right now, but it's just crazy to me that there's so many people that are trying to influence and project their insecurities or their thoughts and their what they want for you onto your life. And it's just very hard for kids probably to realize it's happening to them until it's too late. So anyway, not only am I looking for the college athletes that wanted to go play pro, but either just didn't make that transition or whatever it may be. When you're retiring from your sport, whether it's forced or choice, I know from personal experience how hard it is, and the loss of identity that occurs, and your self-worth can just plummet. So I trained for 12 years as a volleyball player, and I wanted to make it to the top. My best friends, in college and in high school, like some of them are Olympians, and I wanted to be right there with them. And when my body wasn't holding up, and I made certain choices that probably kept me from really taking that next step. Um, it was really hard for me because all of my self-worth was in my sports. If I wasn't achieving in sports, which again I had been doing for a while, I was like, who am I? Like, I feel like I can't go talk to anybody. I can't do anything. I've just lost this huge sense of self. So I wanted to make sure I got on here and recorded that as well, while it was fresh. So that's kind of just how I want to start the episode again. I'll kind of go back over a lot of the things I talk about over and over again. But I don't know, maybe I'll just kind of start talking about my life and my background. I kind of go back and forth. Again, honesty online. So I just record myself talking pretty much unedited, unfiltered for 30 minutes to an hour. And I would be lying if I didn't have some concerns, or like I almost kind of like don't want to just tell people everything. My stance is, if you're okay with telling people and you don't think it can be used against you, like go ahead and do it. But people, man, I've been reading this book too and listening to the full version audio book, 48 Laws of Power. I don't support 90% of that book. I mean, that's if you want power. I'm not looking for power, but it's good to know that the many people that I will have to interact with or answer to or deal with in life, and just passing or past jobs, or who knows what my future holds. But I at least get to understand what these people are willing to do and at what lengths. And it's bad. It's bad stuff. There's evil stuff in there. And, so I'm hesitant to just kind of tell everything about myself all the time. And I don't necessarily want to bring people I care about into it. I don't want anyone to be used against me necessarily, although depending on how things go and the things that I uncover or talk about, I'm sure that is something that could happen. So I want to be careful. You can never be too careful. Despite what anyone might tell you, you can be as careful as possible. As long as you're still taking action, then I think you're in a good zone there. So yeah, I'll just kind of tell you guys about myself, like from the beginning and onwards, and we'll kind of see how far this goes. But I grew up in a pretty Christian household. I grew up in Illinois, in a suburb of Chicago, in a really conservative town. And, I went to church every weekend. And I think I've mentioned a little bit of this as well, where I just don't necessarily think it resonated with me. And school was the same way. So when I was little, I've never really even psychoanalyzed myself on this fully. It's kind of come across my head a few times, but what was I going to say? Damn it. I'm going to pause this so I can think what the heck I was talking about. There it is. So, it never really resonated with me. And even just talking to my life coach, an hour ago, school is the same way. So, I remember. So, I wanted to be a really high achiever, right? And I did that because I thought, if I do really well at as much as I can possibly do well at, people will start to like and accept me. So, that's another huge, thing for me as to why I believe that I'm on the spectrum, even though, I've done an online test and it said I was, but I've never, been diagnosed. And again, it's because most people my age that try to get diagnosed, the experiences they have are not good. And most psychologists, or not most, I'm not going to label them or say it's their fault or anything like that, but there's a lot of horror stories of them just having no ability to understand, or they don't realize what a life of masking, not realizing that you're doing it, and not realizing you're autistic or neurodivergent, whatever you want to call it, what that does and allows you to do. So it's you make eye contact. It's yeah, but eye contact's valuable. You can gain things from that. So depending on how you look at things, you can overcome a lot of things, whether you have autism or not. So anyway, I just thought that school and church and the way that it was organized and how they were trying to teach these things, it never resonated with me. It wasn't my learning style. And I deeply believe that we have it very backwards, and that we are just trying to make all these well-rounded humans and trying to, get everyone to learn everything. So it's like a jack of all trades, master of none. Why? Why are we basically killing kids' passions and creativity and what they want to do and explore to, like, let them tell you what they want to do. And as long as it can translate to a job that's out there, like in the current world today, or it's a job that there could be, if they wanted to be an entrepreneur and run their own business down the road, like, why would you not encourage a child to stick to what they're most passionate about and let them be the best? That's why people are amazing when they're unique and just following what they want to do and what gives them meaning. Because when they're doing that, their ability to perform just skyrockets. If you like doing something, the time flies by. It doesn't even feel like training sometimes or practicing. So why would we not want people to be pursuing what they love most, as long as it's a productive, positive thing? I'm not saying, for like, let's take it to a pretty extreme example, but like, let's say there's like a sociopath or a psychopath and they literally can't help but like, I have to fucking murder something or kill something. It's like, that's obviously not something I'm condoning, but someone really likes animals and they want to be a vet when they're little, but then we put them through a bunch of math, physics, biology, all this crazy stuff. Biology is probably more relevant to being a vet, but physics, like advanced algebra, calculus, things like, it's like, are we really going to be using that? Like, why are we drilling this into every single human kid when most of us aren't going to be in labs doing science and running math equations? And I understand learning things in sequence to be able to perform and, again, follow instruction and things like that. But it's just so over the top. And again, the well-roundedness, I feel like it's just completely backwards versus allowing people to pursue what they actually want to pursue and get really good at that. Again, I'll go on a million tangents. So the reason I even brought that up is because, if imagine everyone on the planet were pursuing what they loved the most and they were the best at, I can't go be the best, like I'm not interested in being a doctor, right? And having like giving surgery and stuff like that. I can't do that. I need to go to a surgeon to do that. Someone that, hopefully cares about their patients and what they do. And they take the Hippocratic oath seriously. They want to take care of their patients, things like that. Like, we need to work together. We can't all be the best at everything, but you can be the best at one thing and you can get damn close to being the best at, one thing, So I don't understand why we aren't trying to set up school in a way that's more like that, where people are actually going to do what it is they really want to do and what they want to pursue. And then obviously, like, the problems you might run into is when they change their mind or they find out, like, they get to a certain point. It's like, how can this would probably be the biggest obstacle to overcome in this different schooling system that I'm trying to conjure up in my mind. How can you transition them from only really learning one thing for a long time into like a different field? But either way, because my brother's a teacher as well. He's in special education. So, I'm not shitting on teachers by any means. I think teachers are super undervalued and they are literally, teaching the youth that carries us all on and moves us forward. So if we can make it better, we should make it better. I think school's been kind of just operating the same way for a really long time. And I don't think it's gotten any better. I feel the same way about like traffic and construction. It's just been super stagnant for a long time. I don't feel like people really are advancing at all like we used to. And I don't think it has anything to do with like us hitting a ceiling. Like, it should just be exponential growth as more technology and things come out. So why is school so stagnant? Why are people not performing and so miserable? Why does it take a million years for construction to happen? And like, why are we all stuck at red lights and traffic? Like, it just doesn't make any sense that we're putting up with this stuff instead of coming up with reasonable solutions. So, anyway, let's get back into me and my life. Cause that's a topic that I'll probably dive into on a whole episode or multiple, as far as like trying to revamp school or just questioning things like that. I have an episode coming up where, I just talk about things that just don't make any sense to me. And I'll talk about why I don't think they make sense and potentially why, like, how we can make it better. Maybe some people will resonate. Maybe they won't. If you disagree, please share why you disagree or what you think. If you think I'm an idiot, that's okay, man. Another great book is The Four Agreements. And one of those agreements is basically not giving validity to what people that don't know you like say about you. If I say, oh man, that guy that I've never met in my entire life thinks I'm an idiot, and I'm like, I must be an idiot, I just validated his thought. And then now I'm feeling like an idiot versus, okay, that's an interesting perspective. They don't think I'm very smart, and this is why. Um, okay, agree to disagree. They don't really know me, so it's okay. You're free to have that thought, but I'm not going to take on that burden of being an idiot because unfortunately your opinion doesn't mean much to me if we've never met and you haven't actually tried to understand who I am as a person. So I'm pretty open to any feedback. I think I'm pretty capable of kind of sifting through what's just toxic, hater stuff, troll stuff online versus something that people are trying to actually improve what it is that I'm doing and trying to do. So, yeah, so I was a pretty good student, and through middle school, I think eighth grade, I started kind of like seeing a lot of like class clown behavior, and that it made people like those people and they thought they were funny, so I started kind of doing more of that. Again, like as a child, I really just didn't feel understood or accepted by anybody. And even today, like it's very rare that I feel I'm connecting with people and they're actually trying to understand where I'm coming from. Again, it doesn't really matter, but as a child, I mean, I was just trying to make friends. I was just trying to fit in, just trying to do whatever I could to not get bullied or, like made fun of. And it's just like, so if I'm going to be a class clown and that makes people like me more, then like, okay, I'll do that. If I was like into sports and performing in sports because I think a lot of athletes gained popularity in high school, but going into high school, I played lots of sports growing up, football, baseball, basketball. I did karate. I played lots of ping pong and things like that. So I've played a lot of sports. I'm a pretty well-rounded athlete. And a huge reason for that was just to try to gain friendship and camaraderie with people, because I was definitely not the person to like walk across the playground and be like, hey man, want to be my friend? Or, like I was so uncomfortable doing that. I didn't think anyone would want to be my friend. So if I just spend enough time around people, maybe they'll like me if I just am myself and just, via proximity basically. And it honestly worked out. So I was not super popular in high school. I feel like a lot of people knew who I was, but I was just, kind of like in different crowds. I was doing, band from fifth grade till freshman year of high school. I stopped after my freshman year. Band teacher said, you got to miss your basketball tournament for this band concert. And I was like, I'm not choosing sports over band. I ended up missing that basketball tournament, but I was like, this is the last year I'm playing an instrument, because it's just not, as cool as instruments are. I was playing trombone. And I was not that cool of an instrument. I wasn't that good. I didn't really care about it that much. If I could go run it back, I probably would have stuck with piano lessons or try to, play guitar more seriously, because my uncle is a musician, and I think he gave me a small guitar when I was, pretty young, and he gave me a couple lessons, but it just didn't continue on. So anyway, so yes, back to the sports. I was playing, basketball was probably my favorite sport. I definitely was like, I'm going to get to the NBA. I wasn't playing travel or anything like that, but I have an older brother. He's 3 years older than me. And I was always trying to keep up with, his friends and things like that. So trying to compete with people that are 3 years older than you, especially when they're in high school and you're in middle school, or they're about to be in college, or they're in college and you're in high school, like that's a pretty difficult thing to do, to play 3 years up with people. But I did my best. I'm 6'7", and I was maybe 5'11" or so freshman year. Not super tall, but very, very skinny, thin. I played like tight end, wide receiver for football, mostly wide receiver as I got older, and some, like some cornerback or safety. But once I got to high school, I broke my arm freshman year playing football, running a route. I got pushed to the ground, and my arm got kind of caught underneath my body in the field, and I had a buckle fracture. So, trigger warning, the bone just kind of like splinters a little bit basically from all the pressure. So, anyway, I said football, I'm done with that, but I played basketball. It's for sure my first love of sports. I wanted to take that as far as possible. I still love basketball, probably is my favorite sport, both to watch and play. Plus, you can go shoot hoops by yourself. It's very hard to play volleyball by yourself. It's like, serve a ball, shag a ball, serve a ball, shag a ball. Like the amount of reps you can get in versus the energy you're expending when you're doing solo volleyball stuff, it's not very efficient and it's definitely not very fun. But, obviously you can still get better that way if that's what you're looking to do. Anyway, so I play basketball and then I'm basically deciding, do I want to run track and field and really do like hurdle, either hurdles, long jump, triple jump, high jump, more of the field, like jumping events. I think I had more of like a proclivity for that from, middle school. I did some like high jump and long jump and stuff, or play volleyball. I was going back and forth. I was like, what do I want to do? And my older brother's friend, a couple of like the good ones, Joe Kelly is one of the guys, and he was a great volleyball player and another just super fierce competitor. Man, that guy, no nonsense, no bullshit kind of dude. Like he will let you hear it, but I actually really admired and respected him. He was over at our house and they were talking, hey, you going to try out for volleyball? And I was like, I don't know. And, 3 or 4 were like, you gotta try out. I'm like, okay, like, sure. I mean, like, it doesn't hurt. So I ended up deciding like the day before volleyball tryouts to try out. And, I was atrocious, like somewhat athletic, maybe coordinated, maybe not. I don't have no idea what freshman mat tryouts would have looked like. I wish I could go back and see that. But I can see like, there's a couple clips of me being a freshman and like my first year in club. I mean, just watching those movements versus, the level I eventually got to, it's hilarious to watch. So I was awful at volleyball, but it was a really good group of guys. So I ended up having a lot of fun, even though I wasn't very good. We kind of had like an A and B split team where there was like maybe I think 15 or 20 of us on the 2 freshman teams. So we kind of like played both A and B for a lot of the games to just kind of spread the playing time. But obviously like the better kids played more A, and the kids that are still figuring it out a lot and learning were playing on the B team. So I kind of split between A and B. But again, I had a really good time. And Coach Shire, I think lots of people have opinions on him, but I have the deepest respect for this man. I mean, he literally changed my life. He talked with us as freshmen saying, he said, I don't think we've had a class with as much potential as you guys potentially ever, which was wild. And, whether it was true or not, who knows? I've never even point blank asked him. I could ask him now because we're pretty good friends, but, or if it was just the seed to be planted, because the senior team, my brother's friends, they 3-peated state champions that year. So for us to just be like, these guys are amazing. Oh my God. Like, I can't believe they're so good at volleyball. And for the varsity coach who just won state championships with them to be like, you guys are the most potential I've ever seen. I think it just put a seed in all of us that like, wow, we could really do amazing in volleyball. And so it was kind of this magical thing that came together because, our basketball, not too great, sorry, Wheaton South coaches, but like, not a fan of you guys. Not when I was in there. My last day as a basketball player was in the summer league, and they had one of the star kids come and sit on the bench. Coach looked down, Callaway, yeah, get on the ground. And I just sat on the ground. But after like a couple minutes, I was like, I'm good. Like I'm going to leave. And I just quit because I was like, this guy literally like never calls my name except for to put me on the ground so that someone else can rest, and like, whatever. I was a little kid, so I was pretty pissed about it, but that was the end. So I ended up deciding, again, very last minute, to play club volleyball at Sports Performance. And, I made the 16-2s team, wasn't on the top team. And another really good buddy of mine, Thomas Jeschke, he also was on the 16-2 team, and he's now a current Olympian. Amazing volleyball player, super hardworking, smart guy. So, we kind of like stuck together and pushed each other really hard. At least I like to think. I hope I pushed him pretty hard as well. But he was definitely one of those guys that, in my mind, he's probably the closest to Kobe Bryant as far as like making sure that people, when they're in the gym, are working as hard as they possibly can, and we're all trying to work to achieve something together. Like, he's the closest thing that I've personally experienced to what I imagine Kobe was like. So we ended up playing 16 club. We qualified for nationals as a 16 twos team. We always kind of joked we were the best 16 twos team in the nation, no doubt. Ultimate had another good club out of Illinois, and their 16 two, I think, is either black or blue. They were pretty good as well, but we were just a little bit better. And then the next year, I quit playing all the other sports. So my sophomore year, this year I played club. I quit playing all the other sports and just focused on volleyball, and I got way, way better playing club. And then when high school season came around, me and Thomas both just hit these huge growth spurts. There's a lot of opportunity to try to make this varsity team. They had just lost like a very heavy senior class at 3P the state championships. So we're doing tryouts, and I get called up to the varsity team to start trying out with them. I'll never forget the play that basically got me on varsity. Was a B or a gap ball that Eric Wilson set to me, and I just crushed it. I had never even seen a set that good in my life, but I was like, it just lined up. My approach was I was off the right spacing. Like, so many things could go wrong in an approach. If you play volleyball, especially as a young person, as you get older, it becomes a lot more just like automatic, as far as the spacing and everything that needs to happen in order to make the game, function. But, this was the hardest I ever hit a ball in my life, and I just crushed it. And I think that was the one play where the Schreier saw a little bit of potential in me. So I got to, at the end of the tryouts, and there were 4 seniors on varsity, and then they took 4 juniors, and then they took 4 sophomores, including me. And Schreier, he's a very transparent guy, in my opinion, where he said right off the bat, I don't know how much you're going to play. I just really want to develop you as a player. I saw some potential in you, and I want you to come up and play on varsity. But if you didn't see any minutes, would you be okay with still, being on our team and doing that? Heck yes, I would. I wanted to be on varsity so bad. I didn't even think it was an option. So, I decided to join up on that. Me, Thomas, another kid named Tim Zyber is just another stud athlete, big guy. And then Matt Nussbaum, who again was probably the best out of all the volleyball players as a sophomore. I mean, he was one of the best middles in the nation as a sophomore, junior. And then he had some serious knee injuries. So his volleyball career, who knows what it could have been. But he was just dominating kids as a junior at nationals. He played up on the 18 teams at Spry. So us 4 got to play on varsity, and we all, hit huge growth spurts, especially Thomas and I. We went from like 6 foot to 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" within like this year. And we all came back to club for that 16s year. And we, we were huge all of a sudden. People were like, what the heck are they doing over at Wheaton's? They're putting steroids in the water or something. I've never been on any performance enhancing drugs. No steroids for me, but it just was funny that we all kind of like grown and went from these like very awkward average volleyball players to just being a lot better, still not anything crazy, but so junior year, club was okay. We kind of like fizzled out because, the guy that, so try to give a little, again, kind of irrelevant. I just want to give some history to myself and, where I've been from and my achievements, things like that. So probably going into too much detail, which I always do, but, so the 17s, my 16s year, there was no 17s team. It was just 18. So if Thomas and I had not qualified for 16s, we would have been probably pulled up to 18-2 or 18-1. As backups or reserves, but it would have been, again, cool to kind of practice up, but we qualified. So we had to stick our team together and go to nationals as a twos team. And we did our best, had pretty good success for a twos team. And then my 17s year, they actually did have 17s team because there was enough talent, I think, between the 2 classes to actually have a team, but they took, the really good middle from my high school in Nussbaum. He went up, and then a really good setter from Downers Grove North, I think he went to, Zach Perrick, who I eventually went to college with and was roommates with. Great friend. Shout out to you, Zach. So we didn't have the best setter in our class or the best middle in our class, but we were a pretty darn good 17-1s team. Made it to nationals. I think we got to the first round in gold and lost. Yeah, I think we choked against some a Puerto Rican team, N-Ball. They were super good athletes, very, very explosive, great ball control. So, had we had Nussbaum and Zach, the what ifs are fun. I like to believe that we probably would have won nationals or at least been in the championship because, I think the 18s1 team with two juniors starting got fourth. So if we had our two best players in our class, along with, me, Thomas Jeschke, and some other really good athletes on our team, I think we would have definitely given a run for the money to, West Allis, again, really good team out of Wisconsin, kind of led by Trevor Novotny and a couple other guys. But that didn't happen. So then my senior year, I'm like, this is the year we're all together again. Nussbaum blew out his knees, tore two patellar tendon, so he was trying, he had surgery, but he's trying to be the player he used to be, but he was dealing with so much pain. I had a lot of knee issues, so I can't even imagine what his pain was at because I didn't have torn, I had maybe micro tears, but he had two big holes in his. So I'm sure the pain is excruciating. He did his best to still be a huge contributor, and he was. He just, wasn't quite the same athletic ability that he had, from the year before. And I've had two shoulder surgeries and a hip surgery myself, so I understand the mental battle of trying to come back from surgery and just not feeling 100% or not trusting your body to do what it's supposed to do the way it used to before. So that was an issue. And then Zach, he played soccer. He didn't give that up. And he tore out his ACL. So, man, the two guys we didn't get to play with last year are now coming off injuries and basically not getting to play with them again this year. So Zach finally came back for nationals. But again, I think Zach knows it too. I'm not afraid to say that he just wasn't quite the same player he was. And we did end up going to Penn State together, and he got back to where he was. Who knows how good he would have been if he never got hurt. I mean, he definitely was one of the top setters in the class. He's very cerebral, very smart choices. You wouldn't expect him to set who he's going to expect. It's very hard to read just because you're like, there's just no way he's going to set that, but he would. And he would get people, one-on-one blocks or open net quite often, both in high school prior to injury and in college, So, we got to first round of gold again, didn't win. West Allis ended up winning again. So they won 16s and 18s year. I think 17s was a California team, maybe Balboa Bay or something. Anyway, but, my junior year of high school volleyball, we choked real bad. That might have been the most talented team we had just because we had a Polish foreign exchange student that was just fun to watch, man. Just so fluid. One of those guys that just had great body control and could just rip the ball. So we ended up choking in a absolutely abysmal match against Naperville North where I'm not kidding, they dressed in USA gear and just basically were telling, fuck you, Polak, get back on your boat, blah, blah, blah. This is a high school volleyball game, and they're just ruining this kid's whole freaking experience. It was really appalling, So Mike had a tough game, and we ended up choking and losing, and it was tough to see because we had, again, a lot of talent and some good senior leaders that for sure could have won a state championship that year. Sandburg was really good. It wouldn't have been like a walk in the park. It's just our conference, our sectionals, our super sectionals just loaded. It was loaded with top 10 teams, 8 of the 10 top teams. And then the other side had maybe 2 of the top 10 teams. Once you get to state from our super sectional, it's pretty much a walk in the park till the state championship. At least that's how I remember it. Anyway, my senior year, we were on a mission. We had 12 seniors, me, Tom, Tim, Nussbaum were kind of like the senior leaders for sure. Danny Smith was our libero, great libero, super high energy, just throwing his body all around to basically just keep the play going. Kit was our setter, and he didn't really even play club, but man, that kid, he almost didn't play, but he is probably still one of my favorite setters because it just seemed like he didn't, I want to say this the wrong way, but it's not like he didn't try, but he didn't try to make every set perfect. He's like, I got this row of these, 6'4" plus dudes. If you're not 6'4", Nick Smith, shout out, he's 5'11", I think, with like a 40-inch vertical, but our entire front row in high school is touching over 11 feet, which is just nutty, So, half of us are touching close to 11 and a half feet. To have a team like that in high school, I mean, we are not fun to deal with. So we were on a mission, led by Thomas and myself. It's my second year as a captain. Yeah, I guess I'm getting too into like just talking about the sport. Sorry, the nostalgia is crazy, but the reason I really want to talk about it is because I was a captain, voted at the end of my sophomore year. I barely made varsity my sophomore year, and at the end of the year, um, probably halfway through the year to three-fifths through the year, I finally got a chance to start. Just came in with a ton of energy. I didn't, necessarily play great, but I just was like a spark plug, and the team started playing a lot better with me, and we ended up making it to the state championship my sophomore year, and I was starting. And at the end of the year, we have our our award ceremony, and they announced the captains for the next year. And they announced Eric Larson, Dave Priest, and then Matt Callett. I was shocked. I was shocked out of my mind that between the coaches and the senior leaders that they thought I had what it took to be the captain. I was definitely more of like a lead by example kind of guy, especially my junior year. I really want to kind of sit back and kind of let the seniors lead their team, let it be their team. But I was definitely taking notes, mentally at least, not necessarily physically, to see, what was it that they were doing that was good as a captain, or maybe it's things I didn't like, and then trying to come back as the best captain I could possibly. We're not doing what we did last year. We went 42-0. In Illinois, you only play best 2 out of 3 to 25, and the last set I want to say was also to 25. Starting to forget now because in college the last set's to 15. So I want to say it was to 25 as well. Maybe some tournaments were like to 15 or something like that. But we only dropped 2 sets the whole year. We dropped in the first tournament of the year, we dropped a set to who we played in the state championship. And then the second best team probably in our state, I'm starting to forget the names now. I think it was Glenbard East, another just like huge rival of South. And they had a really good team. They're another top, 10 team in state. And I think we played them 6 times that year, and Joey Farrell, hope Joey's doing well. He ended up going to Penn State as well. He's a year younger than me, but he was one of those guys when I walked in at Spry for tryouts. He was a year younger than me, but he was hitting on the net, and I was like, damn, that kid's a beast. And I found out he's a year younger than me. I was like, Jesus. It's like, I'm out of place here. But Joe Farrell knows that South had that team's number. Another couple great dudes, Tim Shank and Matt Finder on that team. We played them 6 times between conference tournaments and playoffs, and we didn't drop a set to them. Our team, again, there was a couple games that were pretty scary. The second, actually, I think the second time we dropped a set was, it wasn't against Glenbard East. It was against Downers Grove North. My teammate Zach, my eventual teammate Zach at Penn State, he and JP Tulaka had just an out of their mind game in the sectional semis, I want to say. Maybe it was the sectional championship, and we're down in the second set. They won the first set, and this is how I remember it. I remember like pulling the team in down to it like a huddle, and it might have been like 18-15, something like that. And I said something along the lines of, we're a better team than them, and we're absolutely going to win this match. And we just need to put 1 point together at a time and do exactly what we've done all year. All right. But we have to buy in. So something like that. I don't remember the exact words, and I don't know if people thought it was corny or if they actually got juiced up about it, but we somehow squeaked out the second set, and then Founder Groove the third, just rolled them the third set, and then we just cruised all the way to the state championship, going 42-0, got crowned as the ESPN Gatorade Fab 50 #1 ranked team in the country. Huge, high school drama for volleyball, because I think someone commented on the ESPN article like, heard Wheaton South surfing team's pretty good too. Should we give them the #1 spot? I'm like, you guys couldn't be more salty, could you, Callie? Because, you guys, obviously, you've been playing volleyball a lot longer. Your ball control is really good. You look more fluid, but like the teams coming out of the Midwest, when I was, in high school, we were so freaking physical and just big athletic guys. Um, we just didn't lose, man. You know, you guys were ranked one for a long time, these teams, and they got a loss and then a second loss, and then a third loss. I think when we had won the state championship, the team that was currently first and probably would have got crowned first, they lost in their state championship. And I think the ranking people were just like, we just have to give it to South because they just smoked the people they played in state and they haven't lost. We can't blame them, but like they, you know, even if their competition's not as good and that's the reason they're 42-0, like they did not lose. So how could we possibly rank them lower than number one? So that's kind of what I thought about it. But then, you know, I went on to Penn State and, you know, that was a dream school for me. I didn't know if I was going to go. Me and Thomas went on a recruiting trip together. And, you know, I wasn't surprised that they didn't offer me scholarship money. There's not very much scholarship in men's volleyball. There's 4.5 scholarships for a 17-man roster at Penn State. Thank you, Title IX. Thank you genuinely from the past for actually allowing women to be able to compete in sports. And, you know, I can't remember the exact, there's like some other things that Title IX did that was very good for women in college and sports. But now it's like, you need to take football out. All right. Because there's no female sport that's like football. So it just completely skews things. So the ability for, you know, men in kind of like the not headhunter sports outside of basketball or football to actually receive scholarship money for the amount of work and things they do to be athletes, it's just not very much opportunity for it. So they didn't offer me any scholarship money. They also recruited me as an opposite, and I've been playing middle my whole life pretty much. You know, but anyway, so I went to my visit with Thomas at Penn State, and we had this amazing visit. He's like, if you tell me you can go, we'll go. And I was like, oh, I was like, man, I wish I could. I just don't know if we can afford it. Like, I don't know. I mean, I didn't know at the time. So I said, you know, I'm going to go on some other visits. You know, you go on other visits. I don't want you to miss out on a better opportunity for you or whatever it may be, just because, you know, I can't afford that school necessarily. And I just kind of want to see what else is out there. So we took some other visits. And Thomas ended up going to Loyola, and I ended up actually going to Penn State. And my dad is an amazing father, and I think he has always done whatever he could to give me every opportunity to do what I want to do. So he and my mom definitely worked as hard as they possibly could to allow me to go to Penn State and give me that opportunity. And, you know, I went, and Thomas went to Loyola. And honestly, I think that's like a huge part of when my life started taking a different direction. You know, I wasn't being held accountable or pushed the same way as I was when like Thomas and I were just hanging out every day, playing volleyball, training together. You know, he was probably my better half as far as the sport goes, you know, because when he went to Loyola, he just turned it on even more. But when I went to Penn State, I think I allowed that team culture to kind of affect me more negatively, you know, between drinking and things like that. I mean, again, like, sorry, I don't know if this is not supposed to be said out loud or not, but like, we're all just pretending that college athletes don't drink or things like that. Penn State has a huge drinking culture. It had when I was, you know, there. I remember at some team party my freshman year, and I think it was Tom Comfort was just like, you know, you're taking it too serious, Matt. I'm just like, bro, I'm here for volleyball. You guys are all fucking around. Like, I'm not taking it too serious. You guys are all fucking clowns. I was just yelling in the back of the kitchen of the SIS. I'm sure people were like, this kid's a fucking on one, but damn right I'm on one. And we should have won a national championship at Penn State. There's no doubt in my mind. And we would have if we were more serious and took our training more serious, and we didn't drink as much, and the team culture was just like a lot more geared towards volleyball. It wasn't, you know. So, you know, we had one of the best players on the planet in Aaron Russell, and the fact that we didn't win one national championship with him as our guy, you know, for 2 years, it's crazy, man. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, but, you know, and Thomas, to his credit, he ended up, you know, being player of the year, winning 2 national championships, and then going on to play pro, like leaving college a year early versus I was, you know, taking a 5th year in college. And, you know, it just, you know, didn't pan out how I had hoped. But, you know, Penn State still gave me like countless life lessons. You know, it definitely took me on a very different path, but I wouldn't be sitting here today and talking to, you know, this camera, but you know, hopefully the world at some point will get to hear this kind of stuff. Um, I wouldn't even be sitting here talking about this stuff today if it weren't for me going down that very dark path that I ended up going down. So I was a captain twice again at Penn State. There'll be another day where I kind of like dive into my Penn State experience. It's already at 45 minutes, and I've kind of just been rambling, and it's not necessarily been super valuable. Again, this is more of just kind of like a little history to me and why I am where I am today. But um, yeah, I got pretty depressed at Penn State. I just did not agree at all with, you know, some of the coaching things that had gone on there and their reasoning and logic. I mean, here's a perfect example, and this is just the plain truth. You know, they told me, and this is my opinion. You'll see very quickly where I stand. Uh, they said, you know, Matt, you don't terminate the ball enough, and I'm like, what do you guys mean by that? You know, they're like, well, let's say right now you hit 5 kills for 10 swings with no errors. You're hitting 500. That's pretty good. We prefer if you had 6 kills, 1 error on 10 attempts and still hit 500. And my jaw probably hit the fucking ground in the meeting room because I'm like, you guys want me to score 1 more point for us, but also score a point for the other team versus just keeping 2 balls alive and giving either team an opportunity for it. Like, I vehemently disagree with that. Like, you should not be giving a point to anybody. I think volleyball, where it's going today, it's a lot more unorthodox. How can you find the court necessarily instead of passing this eye test of just like bouncing the ball, jumping super high? I mean, I always jumped really well, but my shoulders are not great. They've never been great. You know, they were very weak and they had joint issues. You know, I tore my labrum, I think when I was probably in like freshman or sophomore, or maybe sophomore, junior year of high school, but didn't even realize it. And then, you know, it just got worn down to nothing by my sophomore year of college, like redshirt sophomore year, so my junior year of college. My shoulder's just popping out all the time. Like, I did a jump test, popped out, dove before a match, popped out, ran to chase the ball down, popped out. It's just like, man, I need to get surgery on this. So anyway, what are we talking about? Yeah, my shoulders weren't good. So, you know, I just thought that's crazy that the coaches literally don't mind if I have an error. They just want me to get more kills. I'm like, that, I don't agree with that at all. Like, I'll nod and tell you whatever, but like, I'm definitely not going to change my game to give the other team points. I don't care if I bounce the balls. I don't care if my kills aren't like huge energy things. The way I carry myself on the court, and the way I can help elevate my teammates, like that to me was a way better substitute than for me to just bring the energy off my own plays, you know. And I was a really good blocker, really good blocker. So my junior year, I was top 5 in the nation in blocks per set. And then we're playing a conference opponent. I want to say it was Sacred Heart. They had our number that year. We were at their place and we start not doing well. We were on a winning streak as we went there, but we started just having a tough match against them and no one was scoring. And Mark Pavlik is the head coach at Penn State. He just started pulling everybody for anything. And it fucked all of us mentally, especially me. I was like, I didn't even do anything. Like, I didn't have errors. I just wasn't getting kills. And all of a sudden I'm on the bench and then everyone else got subbed back in, but I didn't get subbed back in. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I was being a troll too. Aiden, man, you're my homie too. He was on the end of the bench. I was just being such a jackass too. I knew it, but I was like mad that everyone else got put back in the second set, but I didn't. So I started joking and like hopping on the exercise bike they had on the sideline. You know, I'm sure that didn't help my case. I always spoken out about how I feel pretty transparently to like authority figures, and I'm sure that didn't help my case. They're probably like, "What the fuck is this kid on?" Just like, you know, the party where my teammates are like, you gotta have more fun, you gotta chill, you gotta relax, you gotta do that. Like, that's not why the fuck I'm here. All right, like, you guys got this all wrong. I am not like that. Like, I am like, I want to fucking win and be the best. Okay, so that's what I'm here to do, and that's what my mission and my goal is going to be. So, man, where the heck was I going with that? Yeah, I guess confidence, Sacred Heart, pulling. Yeah, that's right. I mean, I definitely spoke pretty transparently to the coaches and just said what was on my mind. And I think it definitely hurt me in my playing time. And my junior year was just went from being like my year to really turn the corner and become like this dominant player. In my head, that was the narrative that I was going for, to like, I'm getting pulled every other match, starting every other match, just a complete mental fuck. Am I going to start? I don't know. Am I going to get pulled? I don't know. Is it going to be deserved? Probably not. Like I literally would be 2 for 6 or 2 for 5 or 1 for 3, and I'd get pulled. And it's like, I didn't even do anything yet. Like, I didn't score the other team any points. You guys, like, it's crazy that you would. To me, it was crazy. And don't get me wrong, Kevin Gear, who was the guy that I was kind of fighting back and forth with spots, and even Matt Seifert too, that year, those are two of the best guys, man. Like, they're really good volleyball players, good athletes, good teammates, good dudes. Like, I have nothing against them. I just, from where I was coming from, I was like, this just doesn't make much sense. And, Kevin would go in and do a really good job. So it was tough because, like, I want to be a good teammate. It's team first, let's win. But, to go from literally being top 5 in blocks per set in the nation to like getting pulled and then just blocks, the block per set average just tanking to, everything just kind of fell to shit. I felt like my junior year, we didn't even go to the Final Four play-in tournament. We didn't win conference for the first time in 17 years. In my opinion, Pav, I think you completely dropped the ball. I think you messed up big time when Aaron left. I think you didn't have any idea what to do as far as a head coach goes when you don't have a dominant player. I think it showed greatly, and I think you pretty much were the sole reason that our team had so little success that year. Like, I don't know who else to blame other than the head coach that does all the scholarships and recruiting, starting the matches, the schemes. Like, it's you, man. It was your fault. You fucked up big time. Big time. Right? If you can't tell, I'm still holding on to it. I'm looking right at you. If you ever see this, man, I'm not even going back to Penn State for an alumni match till you're out of there, big guy. That's where I'm at. It's a damn shame. And then my senior year, it's unfortunate, man, because, like I said, it wasn't necessarily like the easiest thing for my family to financially afford Penn State. There's not very many scholarships. And so my freshman year didn't have anything. Sophomore year didn't have anything. And going into my junior year, I'm pretty sure, I can't remember if it was going into my starting year or the next year. I want to say it's going into my sophomore starting year, my second year playing. They almost didn't give me scholarship money again. And I literally called my dad after being in the office, because I'm sure I wore it all over my face when they were like, yeah, we don't have any money for you again. I'm like, I'm a fucking starter, dude. If you're a starter and you're playing for a team, you should have scholarship money. I don't give a fuck what sport it is. That doesn't make any sense that there's guys that are on 50 to 60 or more % scholarship that don't touch the court. Like, that's fucking shit management. Shit. Yeah, if you're producing for the team, if you're actually representing the colors of your school and you're on the court and you're not on scholarship money, then your head coach is a fucking moron. All right? Like, that's just unacceptable in any way, shape, or form. Even if you have to divide it up and you can't necessarily get that massive guy, like, do a better job of recruiting. Like, make it more of a reason to come to the school than just the financial aspects, which is what Penn State was great at. Like, there's a reason I went there. The school, the campus is beautiful, the team culture. I mean, they wanted me to be there. I fit in. There's a reason I went there. It's just like, when I got there and actually saw behind the curtains and, became a captain, I'm just seeing all these things that don't make sense. I'm like, what are we even doing here? So anyway, my going into my senior year, they said, hey, we're going to take care of you, scholarship money. Oh, let me rewind a little bit. So I left the meeting and I just was pissed. I was bummed. I was like, I don't even think I can come back to the school next year because I don't have, like, my family doesn't have the money. Like, it's expensive as fuck out of state. And I called my dad and I was like, they didn't offer me anything. I got called right back up to the office and they go, we actually found 20% for you. Riddle me that. Yeah, where'd you find 20% to give me? But, like, good on you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been at that school anymore. Who knows what life would have been like after that. And then I was on 20% my junior year. And then I said, hey, going into my junior year, I was like, this year it's cool. Like whatever the scholarship's fine. But like next year, it's going to be my 5th year. Like, can you guys please like really find some money for me and just make it easier for my family? Like, I feel like I've earned it. I feel like I'm a huge leader on this team and I've done what I need to do on the court so that I can really like do a good thing for my family who's done a lot to get me in this position. Yeah, we'll take care of you. And then at the end of my junior year, 25%. Oh, yes, that was your idea of taking care of somebody that has been going to your school out of state for 5 years, is to give them 5% more on their scholarship? Okay. I don't know. You tell me, how would that make you guys feel? Probably not very great. Doesn't seem like that's taking care of you. So I had this huge dilemma. Am I even going to come back for my senior year? Like, it's not really worth it, And unfortunately, for the foreign exchange student that we were going to get, he ended up not coming to Penn State because he had some family health issues, I think. And they were able to scrounge together 50% for my second semester senior year, which I was very grateful for. But again, I think that should have just been done and done. And don't say you're going to take care of someone if you're not going to take care of them. Don't do that. I talked about false expectations on the last episode or the intro. Do not set false expectations for people. People are way less likely to be disappointed if you don't tell them what it's going to be and then like just completely drop the ball. Like when you set an expectation for them, like that's what they're looking forward to. So then when you don't deliver, like is at least for me, like I've never been great at like handling that kind of stuff. I'm getting better as I talk about it and realize it and know that I need to mature in that way. But man, as in college, when shit wasn't going well and I didn't like school, like this was not good. So it was a freaking crisis. But again, I mean, I was a captain, so I had a lot of leadership experience there. I met my ex fiance in college, and that's kind of where it started to just be a really rough time in my life. So I went from feeling like I'm going to turn a corner, be the best volleyball player, potentially get national accolades, launch me into my pro career, just completely opposite of that. And actually, like the last thing for my senior year even was like for the whole fall, volleyball is like a spring sport, like starts basically end of December and just rolls all the way till the end of school. I was on like the B team side the whole fall, but I was crushing it. I was with all the backups, freshmen, people that never played on the court. And I was just outperforming anybody else in my position. And Pav was trying to do kind of like this unorthodox offense, which I actually, I was kind of down for, to just get our best players on the court and maximize their ability. And I was down for that, but I was not in the blueprints for that. I was never, oh, let's throw Callaway in and see how he does at this stuff. It was like, oh yeah, no, we just can't throw everyone in there. I'm like, I'm not everyone. Like, go fuck yourself, Pav. Like, what do you mean everybody? I'm asking you to put your senior leader, the one that was almost voted the captain my sophomore year, was voted the captain my junior year, and then you guys decided to do the leadership council the senior year so that I wasn't voted captain again. Like, that was whack. You guys tore the team apart with that too. Like, you took leaders from each class that no one voted on. You just completely ripped our team chemistry apart. I couldn't be more disappointed in the coaching staff my last 3 years of college. Like, could not be more disappointed in how that all shook out. And it's just never talked about. So it might be a bad look that I say this stuff, but like, hey man, this is Honest Online. This is my opinion, my perspective. And I don't think any of it was right. And I wish I had talked about it more or had been more outspoken, but I didn't know what to do at that point in time. But now, like, I'm going to tell people how it was. And it wasn't good. It wasn't managed well. And like I said, I'm not going back till Pav's gone. Like, I don't think that guy's a good head coach at all. At all. And there's been plenty of alumni that, like, had text messages back and forth that, like, hey, he's got to go. He's got to go. He's got to go. He's still there, man. What do you guys do? He barely knows volleyball, it seems like, man. I don't know how you could coach for as long as he's coached, have as many wins as you have, and still put the lineup in wrong. Like, man, I just don't have much nice to say anymore about that. So, like, maybe I should just not say it. But at the same time, it's like, I feel like people need to know. I don't think it's right what's going on there. Hopefully it's gotten better. I haven't been to, part of that program really at all since, I left in 2017 after my senior year. They've had some recent success, so maybe things have gotten a lot better. Again, I hope they have. I hope some hard lessons were learned that help them improve. And I'm very much about people being able to change who they are and their like what they bring to the world and being able to grow. So no one's outside of that. And I am always open to want to forgive someone or move forward and, make amends. But just right now, I can't go back there and do that. Especially with how my life is right now, I just don't really have the means even to do that. So anyway, kind of going back into just life development. I did end up going to play pro after taking a year break after college in Estonia. And that was a very interesting experience. I'll probably, maybe someday go into that in my time in Romania as well. But, I did go live in 2 different cultures, pretty much completely on my own. Really tried to figure a lot of stuff out. My fiance ended up breaking up with me a couple months into me being in Romania. And then I blew out my shoulder and my hip in Romania. And I just, fell to pieces, basically. I went home from my brother's wedding and didn't go back to the team. The team tried to freaking sue me. I'm definitely going to have to tell some Romania story at some point, but they tried to sue me because they said I didn't have real injuries. But the language barrier was so bad in Romania that when they took me to the hospital, they MRI'd the wrong part of my body. They MRI'd my back. They actually found a couple bulged discs, but those were basically asymptomatic. And I was supposed to be getting an MRI on my hip, which I was like, I think I blew out my labrum in my hip and I probably need surgery. And they're like, oh, it's probably fine, because they just did the MRI on the wrong part. And then the coach, that coach was for sure one of the most jackass coaches I ever played for. Terrible. That team was terrible. They didn't want to win. They literally did not want to win or succeed or do anything to improve. Very legitimate. We would have the stupidest talks in the locker room. And then we'd go practice and I'd be like, you guys are way out of position. What are you standing there for? Explain it. Let's have a discussion about it. Oh, that's Tutsi. That's how you stand. What do you mean? Why are you on the court then if you're not going to play the schemes that make sense, that all volleyball teams are can make a good case for? So that was rough. A lot of rough stuff happened in my time in Romania. And when I come home to have surgery and stuff like that, and after my brother's wedding, the surgeries finally got scheduled and I had this whole plan. I was excited to try to get back to healthy and kind of go back, play pro and go out on my own terms. And then there's a global pandemic that just shut down everything, so all general surgeries were canceled, postponed that. I turned 26, so I lost my parents' health coverage. It's just hilarious. It's just hilarious, the snowball that my negative mental state, led to and just manifested. So many awful things happened. And I just got to a point in my life. Like I said earlier, I'm looking for athletes that are transitioning from being an athlete to the real world. Cause I know firsthand exactly how hard that is. And I know firsthand how I got out of it. So that's the kind of stuff that I want to help other people do, because it's not over, man. When your sport's over or whatever, that when there's a tough point of your life where you have to make a big decision, it can definitely feel like it's over, you're never going to recover from it. You don't have self-worth, all these things. But at the end of the day, you can definitely overcome it. I went from literally being I'm going to die when I'm 45 because my body hurts so bad that I can't even imagine. I see how my parents are. They didn't play sports quite as long as I did. And I see, the physical shape they're in and how bad their joints are. I'm like, I'm screwed. So that was just the mentality as I was looking at it. But then, I don't know, as the clouds parted and I met my wife today, she saw some value in me as I saw no value in myself. And she's probably a huge part of the reason why I turned a corner. She's definitely a huge part of the reason why I turned the corner. And just realized there's more to me than even I knew. And I need to go out and figure out what that is. So there's a lot of just kind of flip-flopping back and forth of do I want to play volleyball? Do I want to coach volleyball? Do I want to do this or that? I need to finish my degree because I left, with 2 classes I needed to get done. And, I was working at Lifetime, and, I've always been very transparent to people. I'd like to remain. I wish the world were a way where you could actually just say how you felt about things and tell people what they need to hear. But so many people are just acting on bad faith in that. I was telling, like, for example, I told Lifetime, hey, I just, I want to do as well as I can here, but I just don't know if I'm going to stay here. Like, I might go coach volleyball after I'm done with this. I might not. But they, a unfortunate manager that was an external hire, didn't really know anything in the business. We basically trained him for the 6 months he was there or whatever. He marked me as not ready, like not ready for promotion, and pretty much just screwed my growth at Lifetime for about a year or so, until I basically started like digging into it and applying some pressure to Lifetime. I'm also going to expose you guys at some point. Probably not right now, because again, we're already at hour 5 for this, and I'm not trying to talk for about a bunch of nonsense that people don't really care about. It's just, this is a good episode. If you want some background of who I am and where I came from, then you can get a little bit of history of me. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, Lifetime, right? Yeah, you guys, classic smoke and mirrors, healthy way of life. Like, just don't really care about their employees. Like, could care less about any frontline worker that actually makes the club the special place that it is, because, know every member, serve every member. So we're supposed to know everyone's names that check in. We want to make sure that everything that we could possibly do to make their experience there as good as possible, give the Disney World experience. That doesn't happen without the people that are actually at the front line. So I've worked all kinds of jobs. I worked, basically as a janitor for Lifetime in the operations department for almost a year, then switched to their customer service. So I've worked these, member facing roles and had to deliver lots of bad news that the company, is like initiating new policies and all this different stuff. Like, through the COVID era, we closed, they closed all the gyms and all that. I gained tons and tons of people experience. I got a lot better at communication and conversing with people, and just, I just started realizing how the real world is. Because I've been an athlete for so long. A lot of stuff is taken care of for you when you're a good athlete, especially at Penn State. They do an amazing job taking care of their athletes. Even if you're on the volleyball team, like, I can't even imagine what it would have been like to be a football player, at a school like that, where like that's the sport. And, bless our football team too. We probably wouldn't have a volleyball team for how well the football team does. And honestly, God bless our girls volleyball team too, because they're super successful. And I'm sure that, the few fans that the men's team did have, like, a lot of them are probably from the female game. So, I just, certain things I started really realizing, as I got older, that, people, they're not really sure about what they're doing. There's not really much certainty in life and at all. And I actually got to a point where I was like, there are no facts. Now, let me explain this. There are facts of the past, and there are facts of the present and today, but the facts of the future are going to change. So there's no certainties in life. Like, we just discover something that's new as far as science goes. And, lots and lots of things can change. Like, there's people that don't believe in aliens. Well, if aliens are here and it seems like there's probably aliens, like, that would change their worldview. There's so many things that could just change with a little bit more discovery or information that would just, it's like everything that you knew would almost seem like it's a lie, or it's just not true anymore. So, a lot of people speak with this like certainty or like facts. It's like, no, you don't really know. You're doing the best you can. Like, I'm not mad at it whatsoever. That's all people can do. Do the best you can with what you know, but you don't know what you don't know. So what do you do when you're in a situation where you're not really sure? You're not, again, you don't know what you're doing, but you need to lead people or, raise a child or whatever it may be. You're doing the best you can. People just don't realize, I think, that the sum of what you know up to a certain point is basically a sum of everyone's projections and insecurities that they forced on you to realize in your whole life. So until you come to a point where you're like, what do I actually think? Why do I think that? What do I want to think? And why do I want to think that? And like, what's good for me? you got to get to a point in your adult life, and some people never get there. They never get there at all. They never have that oh shit moment where it's like, maybe everything I've been told, more or less, I'm being a little dramatic here, wasn't necessarily the truth. I'm sure everyone that's listening to this or ever does listen to this has experienced at some point in time where they had like two contrary ideas like in their mind, or like an experience where it's like, my mom told me that, here's an example, sorry mom, Coke can dissolve an iron nail and baby teeth, and like bam, like that. And then it's like, I looked it up, or someone said that's not true. And, like, you want to take your parents' word for it, but like, think about how many things you heard from somewhere and then you basically espouse it as fact to someone else. It's just like the amount of just garbage information that can get out there. Like, it travels fast, man. Like, there's so many, I don't want to, I should have looked this up, but like, again, this is a pretty spontaneous show. I want to say that there's like it was actually a scientific experiment about, I'll just go with this. I don't know if this was the exact thing they tried to say, but they wanted to see how fast that like rumors would spread or something like that. So I think it's something like, man, I'm not sure if this is a real fact or not. So this is even kind of capable of what I'm talking about, but it said something like you're always, you're never within more than 5 feet away from a spider or something like that. So there's like some generic scientific fact that like almost everybody has heard that before, but it's not true. And it was actually to just see how fast things like that can travel and spread. I don't know how they measured it or if it's even a real experiment. This is exactly what I mean though. So there's just a lot of things that are said that have little to no validity to it, especially for like you as an individual's life. Genuinely, most people are just trying their best with what they have and what they know, right? So they're not trying, I don't think most people are trying to like mass manipulate anybody or like be a really shitty person. Like, they're just trying to deal and get through life, and trying to speak on things that they think they know, but like, some people just aren't even remotely aware of like, if they say something, how it can make them look, or like, I don't know. It's not super important, but what is important is that you need to get to a point where you realize I'm probably holding some thoughts and beliefs or ideas that are either not true, not ones that I even care to believe in, or something like that, versus what ideas do I need to hold near and dear to me that are going to help me live my best life. All right. So, I think religion is very, very important, and it creates like a framework for great values to live by. I'm not sure if any of the religions that we practice today are like the true path to God or not. I think there's probably only one right answer, like one that's exactly the right answer as far as like what is God and all that. But I thought that for a really long time. More recently, I'm thinking things like maybe they're all kind of right and they got different pieces of it right. And if they actually all came together, which they would never do, then you'd actually come to learn who God is. So there's, it's like Eastern versus Western religion, where Eastern religion's more like within, versus Western religion's like looking up to God to like be the model. So there's like mindfulness versus practicing like what would Jesus do. So I think both have like untapped potential basically for teaching people how to live a better life, but you got to really figure out like what's best for you, because maybe like unfortunately some of the Christian teachings like aren't good for your life. Like I would probably dive into that and really explore and see if that's true or not, because I think Christianity does like have some impeccable values, especially when you look at Jesus and the stories about him. It's pretty well documented and acknowledged that like Jesus was a real person. So for me, it's just hard to argue against being a Christian when I think that Jesus was real. I think he really died, and I think he really rose again. Like, I think those are actual facts. So it's very hard for me to like just kind of move away from Christianity. But at the same time, like I very much value a lot of like the conversations I've had people that are like Muslim or of Islam faith, like it's very interesting to me. And there's a lot there that like I'd like to also know and explore to become a more, well-rounded person. Again, it's not bad to be a well-rounded person, but if you're looking to be the best, it's probably not going to happen. So, but it's good to kind of just have more general knowledge that you can use at your disposal. Like, I don't think that's a bad thing, as long as you can kind of keep the thoughts straight in your head and it's not overwhelming. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just really important that at some point in time, you got to figure out what values are actually going to help you live your best life. And I think for me, like trying to live like Jesus, where he's, not judging anybody or condemning anybody necessarily, but he's trying to be as accepting and loving as possible. He's not lying, he's not hurting anybody. Like that's the, like, he's an enlightened individual. If he wasn't the Son of God, then he was an enlightened individual. And there's very few people in the history of mankind that have like reached true enlightenment, of where you're almost like a God on earth. So it's like we are made in his image. And I thought I've spent a fair amount of time about like, what is that like? And the unfortunate thing is, when I'm living the most moral, ethical, like righteous life, like when I've tried to do that, there was a point in time a couple of years ago where I was like, I just don't think it's that hard to do the right thing. Like, I told myself that every day. So if I saw a piece of trash on the ground, like no matter what was going on, like I would just pick it up. If I would hold open the door for everybody. For me, it's never to do it to do it. It's just because the golden rule is huge. It'd be nice if someone held open the door for me. It'd be nice if someone said hi to me. So like I want to do that for other people, as long as it's not taking too much energy. I found it mostly filled me up. What really cut me down though was when like the people that I'm close to or love or care about would say something like, "Oh, that's your God complex." Like, "Oh, you just think you're better than everyone." And it's like, you don't have any idea how far from the truth that idea is. I definitely don't think I'm better than anybody by any means. I think we all have a ton of potential if we're harnessing it the right way. And again, like going towards like what gives us meaning and a meaningful life that's helping others. Like your ability to fill other people's cup up will actually help fill you up as well. And when you notice that people appreciate what you're doing, like it gives you so much more energy, and you can go like, you'll feel like you're at your wit's end, and all of a sudden you get that win where someone just really appreciates and they actually were noticing all those good things you're doing. So yeah, I told myself for a long time, like just do as much of the right stuff as you possibly can. Like don't do anything, don't lie, cheat, steal, don't do, no adultery, nothing. Like, obviously that's like a big one, and there's all kinds of different, so, okay, real quick. All sin is created equal. That's an interesting topic, because here on earth, as like mortal, all sin is not equal. There are certain sins that if you commit, like the price is very heavy, as it should be. If you murder somebody and ruin their opportunity to live the human experience, like that has serious, serious consequences as far as like the mortal realm. Like that person you killed, they don't get to do another day of life again. You should go to jail or be like, if it's tough with the legal system because people have been wrongly convicted, which I think is a flaw. But if you're certain, if there's 100% certainty that somebody was like a murderer, mass murderer, psychopath, or something like that, put to death. Like to me, and again, that's like an anti-Christian value where someone can always come back from forgiveness. That was in Viktor Frankl's book, A Man's Search for Meaning. One of the worst Gestapo or whatever guys that run into camp, he ended up being like a huge philanthropist towards the end of his life. Was it probably largely due to the guilt he felt from what he did to those people, those unspeakable atrocities? Probably, but like I'm just saying, to the Christian's point, like, and honestly, to my own belief, people can always change, but I'm still at the mental barrier where it's like, I think if you are a mass murderer and you are robbing a lot of other people's lives to change, do good, maybe if where there was a huge deterrent that you are definitely going to die if you do something like that, less of it would occur. I guess that's kind of where my head's at. But back to all sin is created equal. So when it comes to the Christian belief of that, all sin is created equal in that even if there was just one sin, any sin that you do, any wrong that you do, is the reason that Jesus had to go be put up on that cross. All right. So whether you lie one time, or you kill somebody, or you cheat, or you steal, whatever it may be, it's all equally responsible for putting Jesus up on the cross. And when I saw Passion of the Christ, for the first time especially, but as I got older, maybe even especially more, like just witnessing that people could do that to another person. One that was like Jesus, who did nothing wrong his whole life. Genuinely, he did not hurt anybody. Like, that's completely unarguable. And if you want to say, oh, he's a blasphemer, like, okay, Mr. Priests and all you guys, you decided to do what you did to him? Yo, you guys murdered him. You tortured him in the most unspeakable way. You just completely tore the flesh off his bones. The man never hurt a single soul. He brought people back from the dead. He turned water into wine. He walked on water. To crucify him and put him through what he put through, which again, he knew he was going to do. He knew it the whole time, his whole life. He knew that was what had to be done. That's why all sin's created equal. So, yeah, it's just a tough pill to swallow at the end of the day. But the reason I think that Jesus was real and all that, I just can't really get my head logically around that. Like, why would the disciples follow him if it wasn't real? Like, I don't think just like logically in any way that any of them could have realized like how big the religion got. They didn't gain any benefit. Like, they didn't have the super fame, wealthy, lavish lifestyle being followers of Jesus. Their main leader, Jesus or God, was crucified in front of them, basically. And then they all pretty much lived pretty brutal lives till they were murdered or died themselves, being persecuted on and down, or just in hiding, whatever it may be. Why would you do that if you weren't so convinced that what you were experiencing was truly God in your presence? If you saw all that happen, like, I just can't really logically get around why 12 men would want to do that, and stick with it even after he died. Why would they continue to preach his word and be his disciples and spread that? And it's, again, well documented that like groups as big as 500 people said they recognized Jesus. And it's like, a mass hallucination of pretending to see Jesus is almost as unlikely as him coming back from the dead. Like, it's very rare that people have shared hallucinations when having drugs. It's very, very rare. So for 500 people all at once to have like this hologram illusion that wasn't a thing back then. So just logically walking down that, I'm sure there's a million holes in this, but that's just where, how my brain sees it and comes from it. It's very hard. And then, the Apostle Paul had written somewhere in the Bible. I know my older brother, his pastor, told me about it, but long story short, he basically has said something along the lines that, if that's not true, if Jesus didn't die on the cross for our sins and he's not the Son of God, like, this is not real. Like, it's not a real religion. And there's not, to my knowledge, any religion that discredits itself if one thing's not true. Like, I don't think any of them do that. So it just gives so much more weight and validity to that, in my opinion. We're at 1 hour 23. Let me see here. I do want to go over things that don't make sense, so I might repeat some of this stuff. Yeah, I wrote this out a little earlier, but I know I'm speaking out on very personal things and I'm talking about it publicly for the first time. I said, I think my opinion is to share what you're willing for everyone to know. And if you think it's going to hurt you or the others to know, like, or be used against you, I wouldn't necessarily do it unless you're, comfortable with that. Um, I said I wasn't necessarily going to name some people, but I think I probably will just name people. Like I named Pav and Penn State and all that. I really do also wish everyone the best from past and in the future, and have really virtually no ill will against anybody. Like I definitely still hold a little bit of resentment for certain things here and there, including things in college. Working on that. I hope to get to a point where I can just completely forgive and let go of that stuff. But I understand this might come as a shock to people. Like I understand that I withheld my opinion, not lying, just didn't tell you what I thought genuinely most of my life. Like people, I posted one time on Facebook when I was like a freshman. Like if people knew what I was thinking all the time, I'd probably get punched in the face a lot. And it's like it's not even because like I'm a dick. It's just because I just can't believe what I see all the time. Like I'm really just shocked about how careless some people are and like how they decide to carry themselves and what they decide to do with, I'll say it a million times, the golden ticket that we have of being a human being here, free will. You can literally do anything you want. You could, they're going to have consequences, some more than others, but you can control your reality as a human. Other beings don't get to do that. Like animals, they have to do what, Mother Nature has written for them in their DNA. They don't get to just decide not to do something. They do what's pretty much good for them the majority of the time. I'm sure there's examples where maybe animals aren't necessarily doing that. But generally it's almost everything that an animal does is instinct to like carry on their DNA, like basically bare bones. So yeah, so I said kind of my background in sports and success there after sport, yeah. But again, yeah, as a life coach, kind of just bring it full circle. I am really looking to help athletes that are making the transition out of sports into everyday life, letting you guys know there's so much more to life. And when you start, thinking about what it is that you want to do, why you want to do it, and how you're going to get it done, and then you start actually executing instead of just thinking about it or talking about it. And then when you get consistency and start stringing it together over long durations of periods, or longer durations rather, it's called the compounding effect. Like it might not seem like much today, but in a year from now, that small action might have grown into unbelievable growth. So, I think some keys to get started. I think I went the reverse of this a couple times where it's like maybe if I get my finances right, like I'll be more mentally happy. So I would do like multiple jobs, and try to have a little bit more money and this and that. But like that really wasn't it. And a lot of times when I would try to focus the other areas of my life prior to focusing fitness, like the fitness just fell away. So you can't tell I'm just sitting here in a shirt, but I'm 6'7" right now. I'm about 195. A couple years ago, I was probably like 170. And I was like super depressed and not eating much and just not really leaving bed much. So I was like very thin, but like no muscle, So I've never been like a big guy by any means. Always been very lean, kind of string bean kind of guy. But like I was definitely very cut and fit. I had like 5% body fat for most of college, and for sure like when I was in Estonia and Romania, it was probably like when I was my most fit, just from the amount of workouts I was doing. And honestly, the quality of food is very good out there because they provide the meals for you, and most of the meals were pretty like nutrient dense, and especially in Estonia, like the food was great there, and the routine was great, and the training was good. My coach was good out there, so I was, I felt great. I was probably 205 at my peak there. So then, and probably right around 205, maybe 210, even in Romania. I put a little bit more muscle on in Romania. And then to drop all the way down to like 170 and just be this pudge of a human, like super depressed, like, yeah, not good. So, and then post that, I was like, I realized I needed to work out more and take take care of my fitness. But I never made it like the priority. It was always like, get multiple jobs, work out when you can. But it always took such a back seat to like everything else in my schedule that, I really committed to trying to turn my life around to be more functional. And just pain free was really like my goal. Cause I'm not kidding you. It's not an exaggeration whatsoever. Like I was in excruciating pain the majority of days from freshman year of college until I was 26. So like 18 for like 8 years, every time you take a step up a stair, like shooting pain in your knees, back pain, hip pain, shoulder pain, like achiness all over, and just have like every day. You just gotta, you're practicing, you're lifting weights. Sometimes you're doing 2 of those a day, spending hours and hours in the rehab just so you could like try to do it again the next day. I mean, I just thought there's just no way. Like I know, like I literally see my parents and they have serious physical issues from not taking care of themselves, and also having like athletic backgrounds where they just, pounding on their joints, the cartilage gets worn down. Like that's very real, but I also don't need to just let that happen to me, so. And again, I'm not trying to like blame my parents or anything like that. Like I'm almost appreciative that they've kind of shown me what that future would look like. Even though, I would, I hope that they can find a way to turn their health around a little bit more to increase the longevity of their lives and comfort and just, everyday stuff. Like, again, I understand the pain every day. It's not very fun and it's not very easy to be positive, happy, and a good force in the world when you're having that happen every day. So, I just decided when there's this, yeah. So, I mean, I'm a dad, so I don't want to give too much information about that. There's weirdos out there. But when my daughter was going to be born, that was the point where I was like, I'm going to hit the gym. So March of 2022, I was like, I want to go to the gym every day. Like, this is where I'm really going to turn it around. And I probably only went to the gym half the days of March. And then in April, I went almost every day. And by the end of April, I actually could see like some serious, changes. And like, I wasn't the blob, the 170 super thin blob. I put on a little bit more weight at this point. I had worked out, kind of off and on, but I had never like really said like, I try to go to the gym every day and just do something, and my biggest fault always, especially as an athlete, going back to the gym every time. I'm a hard learner sometimes, often. Every time I would go back to the gym, I would just try to do the exact numbers and weights and everything that I did like when I was peak, volleyball season. I would just try to do the same exercises, the same reps. Obviously, if you can't do the weight, you can't do the weight, but like it would just wreck me. It would just tear up my body. I would be so sore, and then it makes it really hard to go to the gym the next few days. So anyway, I really committed, and basically up to the point of her being born, I started going to the gym a lot more frequently and started feeling a lot better. And then obviously she was born, and that's a huge difference in your lifestyle. So not necessarily maintaining that consistency. And then, it probably took me about 3 or 4, maybe even 5 months after she was born to like really kind of get back into it again and try to find a way to prioritize it. So, when I was working at Lifetime, I worked at 4 a.m. for the majority of my shifts there, like Monday through Friday, and then eventually Sunday through Thursday, I believe, was my schedule. I was opening the club at 4 a.m. If I wasn't doing those 4 a.m. shifts, I was doing 7 a.m. shifts for the rest of my time there. And I would when I was working at 4 a.m., I would work out right after work. But when I started working at 7 a.m. again, to like after my daughter's born, and try to like just make a little bit better schedule for my wife, I would wake up really early and go to the gym at 4 before my shift. So, the point I'm trying to make is I think it's really important for you to take care of your fitness and to get your body at least looking right. It might take a lot longer to feel great. Working out's not fun. If you're doing it right, it's not fun. It should be really intense. You should either be going up in weights or or reps. Also, like a disclaimer, I think this is almost never talked about as far as fitness goes.
No.
There's a lot of different ways you can train depending on what you're wanting the outcome to be. So when I was training to be a volleyball player, I don't train like that at all anymore. Like I'm hardly doing any explosive or dynamic movements. Like I might do some here and there just so I can keep dunking a basketball. I want to try to dunk when I'm like 40 or 50 even. So I'm only 29. I think that's quite a ways away. But I'd like to try to maintain that. So I don't necessarily lift like an athlete anymore. I definitely don't lift like a power lifter. A power lifter is like to move the weight. So how do you get it from there off the ground, like, as fast as you can, or like, with as good a form as you can. And then there's more of like aesthetics. So you're doing more hypertrophy, a lot more higher volume, a lot more time under tension. You get very addicted to the pumps you get when you are lifting for hypertrophy and more for the aesthetics. But like that's how I lift now. Like I want to look good. I definitely feel a lot stronger and more functional. I'm definitely not as athletic. Like my joints are still pretty shot. I don't think any of my surgeries were very successful. They were successful enough to like get me through, but my left shoulder's still got quite a few issues. I don't know. It's not important. The important thing is you can find a way to like make it work for what you got going on. It might not look like what I got going on. You might not be able to do what I do, and I can't do what some other people do. Like I'm not that strong. I got functional issues as well. Right. I'm actually just going to end it there. Probably sounds like it just kind of went off the rails. I know I was talking about fitness. I had to take care of some stuff at home. And I guess the final message as far as the fitness goes, I think it's really important that, if you're struggling mentally, just try to start exercising in any way that you can. And then building up to a point where, again, exercise is not the fun part. The fun part is getting to see the improvements that you make. And like, honestly, the best thing is when like a random person or somebody you haven't seen in a while, like notices. Again, when someone comments and notices like, wow, you look really good. Or like, like a friend says like, man, your biceps or something. I'm like, no one in my life ever said that ever. So getting to hear feedback like that, it just makes you feel so good that, yeah, I am working hard, and people can tell and notice that the amount that your mental health just improves from that alone. I think it helps in your personal relationships, your work ethic, your lifestyle, everything. So I think trying to get your fitness, don't skip out on fitness because everything else is busy. Try to tie that in any way you can. It's going to give you a lot more energy to do more things versus if you're unhealthy, the amount of energy and ability to work and grind and handle that work it's not enough. So, all right, hopefully there's a lot of, there should have been a lot of thought provoking stuff in there. And a lot of it was kind of just background, but we're going to call it there. But thanks again for being on Way Out There. Until next time, I think we're going to talk about things that just do not make sense. So tune in.